Let's imagine for a moment that someone divides by zero at the Large Hadron Collider and time travel actually becomes a reality. Well, actually it already is a reality. See, the theory of special relativity showed us that time can actually be moving at different speeds for two different people depending on where they are in the universe. The crazy shit, I know, but this is science, and this is all thanks to gravity. So one way to do this would be to build an enormously fast spaceship and approach the speed of light, and you will find the closer you get to the speed of light, the faster the universe ages outside of your spaceship. And very simply, this is why. Let's take this graph. The y-axis is time passed, and the x is distance covered. Now to begin with, we're stationary, but the faster you get, the more distance you cover, so you begin to ascend slower on the y-axis. The faster you cover distance, the slower time passes for you. The line can't be split in two, it can only cover one more than the other. And believe it or not, we know this happens now. GPS satellites are actually programmed to allow for a slight discrepancy in the passage of time, since they're affected less by the gravity of the Earth than we are, and so relatively experience time at a faster rate. Crazy shit. So one time machine may not be a time machine at all, but a spaceship travelling very, very fast. This could also be done on Earth if we had the technology to create gravitational distortions, but that's some equally crazy shit. This is all well and good, but if you travelled a few thousand years into your own future and didn't like what you saw, you wouldn't actually be able to get back. Well, one way of doing this might be a wormhole. Wormholes were originally conceived by Einstein and Rosen in a paper famously entitled the hella fucking balls to the walls awesome conjecture, supposedly because upon realising that two distant points in space could be folded together, Einstein proclaimed, "That is hella fucking balls to the walls awesome." It's like this. Let's imagine that point A is in the Crab Nebula, and this over here is rural France, and that we want to travel between the two without the several thousand years of waiting. So what we do is, using a huge amount of energy, we make a fold in space, linking the two together until we have a bridge between the 2 points and travel through. It's a shortcut in space. However, if you could anchor one end of the wormhole in the present, and somehow put the other end in a spaceship from earlier, accelerate it to the speed of light and give it a while, you could conceivably step through into the future and return to your own time whenever you wanted. Now, the standard Hollywood idea is this. You, a disembodied British narrator, decide that perhaps you should have gotten a job when you were 18, instead of spending years getting a liberal arts degree that no one even seems to fucking care about anyway, despite its merit and worth compared to media studies. So you plan to go back in time and change history. You step into your time machine, travel about 5 years into the past, and successfully manage to convince your past self to go get a job instead, thus sending the timeline off in a different direction. And great, all's well, and the credits come up, etc. But there's a problem. See, you've just changed the course of history, and while that may be advantageous to your past self, you now originate from a timeline that no longer exists. One possibility is that you cease to exist now, meaning that you never actually got to experience the rewards of your efforts in the first place. Or this might happen. Instead of that initial divergence, the previous timeline you came from still exists. The difference is that the moment you travel back in time, the universe split itself in two and allowed for your actions. In the first universe, for all intents and purposes, you vanished without a trace and no longer exist, but in the other universe, you came back and initiated a new set of events. Now 2 universes exist running parallel side by side. The reason Hollywood almost never follows this line of reasoning is because it would make a shit film. Another reason is that it's sort of logically impossible. If you had gone back in time and changed whatever it was in your life, presumably you already would have done it, meaning you didn't need to do it in the first place, right? Good. Well, here's another weird situation. I call these acausal loops. Imagine one day someone anonymously leaves the winning lottery numbers on your doorstep, and instead of checking said ticket on the night of the draw, you go to a party instead. Next week you realise your error and goddamn that was stupid, it's too late, but oh wait, I've got this time machine kicking around in the spare bedroom, I'll just take the ticket back a few weeks and give it to myself. So you travel back a few weeks, only to find that no one is in the house, so instead, being sure that your past self won't miss the hint, you leave the lottery ticket on the doorstep so that when your past self comes home, he finds it there, picks it up and promptly forgets about it for a week until he realises that he has forgotten and thinks, but I've got that spare time machine kicking around in the spare bedroom, and the loop goes on forever. And where did the lottery ticket come from originally then? And I like this idea because the possibilities are almost limitless. What if in a few hundred years some intrepid scientist creates a supernova powered time machine and just for shits and giggles decides to take it back 13.7 billion years ago, back to the beginning of time itself and witness the Big Bang. But when he gets there, there's nothing at all. No matter, no energy, nada. Completely unrelatedly, something goes terribly wrong with the machine and is about to explode, and in the last moments of his life he realises, well, hot damn. This machine is the cause of the explosion I came to look at, and the scientist says, let there be light, and there is light. And there is another way to approach this. See, one interpretation of quantum mechanics posits that many worlds exist parallel and simultaneous to ours. Well, depending on just how varied these worlds are, you may not have to time travel at all. See, if there's a near-on infinity of parallel worlds, then almost any configuration of events that you can think of exists in at least one of them. So it becomes a matter of finding which one it is and stepping into that. One of those universes, for example, is slightly further back in time than this universe, but an exact copy, so stepping into it amounts to time travel, when you haven't actually travelled in time at all. A lot of people ask if time travellers come around in the future, where are all the time tourists today? And I say, we might be the temporal equivalent of North Korea. Kind of interesting, but fucked up enough to avoid if you're thinking of going on holiday.